Good morning, everybody. My name is Mandrell Drakes. I'm back again with Dallas Police Department Community Affairs Unit, and we are here today. We invited our special guest back, Ms. Becky Tinney from the Recovery Resource Council. I always mess it up. She's here to talk about current drug trends, and we are happy to have her back, and I think we'll have her back a couple of more times, so please stay tuned and see what she's got to say about the current drug trends. I also want to give a shout out to the Dallas Stars for making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So without any further ado, I'll let her take over from here.
All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Dallas Police Department, for having me back again. Like Mandrell said, my name is Becky Tinney. I'm the Director of Community Engagement with Recovery Resource Council. I'm a licensed social worker in mental health and substance abuse, and I'm a certified prevention specialist. We are going to talk a little bit about current drug trends facing our youth. So it's going to be a short presentation. We're going to hit some high points, not dive too deeply into the subject. We're going to give you some quick facts, sort of a did you know, and a little bit of backup information. And hopefully this will be kind of what Drake's was saying, one of maybe a series of events that I can come back and talk to you guys about some other current drug trends each time I come back. But for today, today's presentation, like I said, we're not going to go too deeply into the subject, but I do hope that you learn something. I hope that it piques your curiosity. Maybe it'll encourage you to do some of your own research, broaden your horizons a little bit. But mainly, I hope it's sort of a teaser of some of the resources that we have at Recovery Resource Council around prevention and education. And I do want to reemphasize before we start that we are focusing on how this impacts our youth, right? So today we're going to talk about THC concentrate, or liquid THC. And again, this is focusing on how it impacts our youth. So no matter where you stand on the spectrum of legalization for marijuana and marijuana-related products, I think we can all agree that we don't want our youth using them, and we don't want it negatively impacting their development. All right, so without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, number one on my did you know about liquid THC or THC concentrate is, did you know that there's actually two main components to the marijuana plant? And so that's kind of what my little sign here shows. We have the CBD, which is the cannabidiol. That's the non-psychoactive component, the non-mind altering component in marijuana. And then we have THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the psychoactive component. It is mind altering. So if you've been following at all kind of the current social trends around legalization or marijuana for medical use, then the term CBD is probably very familiar to you. But today we are going to solely focus on THC and the liquid concentrate. So when we talk about it being the psychoactive component of the marijuana plant, what does that mean? Why is it the psychoactive component? What is it that makes it react so strongly with our brain? So we actually have cannabinoid receptors all throughout our bodies. They're already there, and they react with a chemical that our body naturally produces called anandamide. Anandamide is sort of the body's naturally occurring THC. Actually, when the cannabinoid receptors, or CB receptors, were discovered and anandamide was discovered, it was while doing research on how marijuana affects the human brain. So when scientists were looking at the way that the brain reacted to THC, they noticed that there were these receptors already in our bodies that were reacting very strongly to the THC. And so they thought, that's really interesting. Why would we have these receptors in our body that are reacting so strongly to this outside chemical? And what they realized was that our bodies produce anandamide, and that these receptors are intended to bond to that anandamide. And so upon further investigation, they realized that the chemical structure of THC is incredibly similar to the chemical structure of anandamide. So when we put THC into our bodies, it sort of tricks our brain into thinking that it's anandamide, that it is our brain's naturally occurring chemical, and it lets it right into those cannabinoid receptors and lets it right in there to intervene with our systems. And Anandamine's main purpose is it sort of helps regulate a lot of different systems in our body, right? So whether it's our mood stabilization, our pain receptors, our memory, our appetite, it sort of helps keep everything in homeostasis or in balance. So when that THC comes in and clings to those receptors, it throws off the natural communication between those systems in our brain. So that's why it reacts so strongly in our brain. The second thing that I want to cover on the Did You Know is, do you know what the devices look like that are used to vape THC or liquid THC, or what some of the packaging of these products looks like? So you'll see here another picture that I brought with me is just a very small sample of the different types of devices that can be used to vape THC. There's so many different devices, there's no way I could have captured them all in one picture. But I do want you to notice that, some of them are a little bit more obvious. Like this one here, you can actually see part of the pod. You might even be able to see some of the liquid. This one here as well. But what you'll notice is some of the other ones are a lot more discreet, right? You might look at some of these other ones and not even realize that they're an electronic vaping device. And that's something really important to keep in mind when we're thinking about why this is such a popular trend with our youth, is because they're easy to conceal and they're discreet. Right? They're easy to stick in a pocket, stick in your sweatshirt sleeve. You might be going through their bag and see some of these and not even think twice about it. But on that subject of being discreet, there's little to no odor when you're vaping the THC pod. So sort of that traditional smell that we associate with somebody using marijuana, it would linger in your clothes or in the room or in the car. And that just doesn't happen when you're vaping the THC concentrate. So it makes it that much more easy to hide, really. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is some of the packaging. So these here are some actual pictures of some of the THC concentrate pods that are sold in states where it's legal. So these are some of the pictures of those pods. And you'll see just some of the things I want to bring to your attention is look at the bright colors, look at the flavors, look at some of the characters that might look familiar, right? And we know that even in states where this is regulated, right, where it's supposed to be for users only 21 and older, we've gone through this same battle with big tobacco, right? We know that who is the most susceptible population to those marketing tactics? It's our youth, right? And when we discovered this with big tobacco, that's when they started regulating how big tobacco could advertise and how and where they could advertise their products. So we see it here in the same trends happening with marijuana sales, right? Yes, it's regulated. Yes, they tell us it's for 21 and over, but we know who's really susceptible to these types of marketing tactics, right? And that's really important to keep in mind. All right, number 3 on my Did You Know? Do you realize how huge of a trend this really is for our youth, right? Every year there is a survey done. It's called Monitoring the Future Survey. It's the longest running youth substance use survey in the United States. It's been happening since 1975, so they have a lot of data on youth substance use trends. In this most recent survey, they asked 12th, 10th, and 8th graders, have you vaped marijuana, THC concentrate, in the last year? And it was specific to THC concentrate. So 21% of 12th graders confirmed that they had, almost 20% of 10th graders confirmed that they had, and 7% of 8th graders confirmed that they had vaped THC specifically in the last year. The 30-day use for 12th graders it doubled in 1 year. So it went from 7% to 14. And that's incredibly significant because that is the largest 1-year jump that has ever been seen in substance use trends in the history of the survey. So again, they've been collecting data since 1975, and this is the biggest 1-year jump that they've seen in any substance. So the reality is marijuana, no matter which form you're looking at it, is the most commonly misused illicit substance by our youth. And as the push for legalization continues across our country, that perception of harm is going to continue to go down, and that perception of acceptance and safety is going to continue to go up. And unfortunately, if we don't start having better conversations with our kids about truly the consequences of using these substances, I don't see these trends in youth use going anywhere but up. So that's really important to keep in mind. Another interesting question that they asked in the survey was they asked kids to tell them what are the reasons that you're vaping, right? So in the kids' own words, what are some of the reasons that you vape? The top 5 answers were to experiment, which we might all expect, right? Because it's fun to do with my friends. I like to have fun with my friends. Number 3, because it tastes good, right? And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about here with those marketing tactics and those flavors and why that's so dangerous. Number 4 was to relax, to alleviate stress or to feel good, you know, any combination of those. And the 5th answer was simply because I'm bored, right? And so when we take a step back and we look at those answers, I think it really gives us some perspective on some conversations that we can be having with our kids, right? That really just sparked so many topics that we could be talking to our kids about, because the reality is we know that they're using, right? And until we understand why they're using, we can't have the right kind of conversations with our kids about addressing those specific whys as to using. So, you know, it really makes you wonder, as educators, as preventionists, or as a parent or any adult role model in your kid's life, are we educated enough about the current state of marijuana in our country to have fully informed conversations with our kids? Are we able to talk to them about the true consequences and bodily harm that they're doing to themselves when they're using these products? You know, are we having enough conversations around stress management? You know, I think maybe arguably one of the most important responses on that list was that they used because it alleviates stress, right? These are our kids that are saying that. And just like we as adults have work-life balance, and, you know, we try to make sure that we put boundaries on having our work time and our us time, our kids need that too. You know, they face stressors when it comes to school and extracurricular activities and getting the best grades and going to college and doing all these things. You know, are we having conversations with them about work-life balance, about healthy coping mechanisms for stress? So it really just gives you some food for thought. You know, if you're not sure where to start when talking to your kids about why they're using substances, a really good place to start is right there. Why are they using it, and what can we talk about to give them alternatives to the why, right? Okay, number 4 on my did you know is, did you know that THC concentrate is incredibly more potent than regular leafy marijuana, right? So just to give you guys some perspective, in 1995, the average THC potency of what we think of as kind of traditional leafy marijuana that was confiscated and tested, they test the THC levels, and so we can follow the trends over years. The average potency of THC in 1995 was only 4%. So today, in states where it's legalized, you can purchase what we think of as traditional marijuana with potencies anywhere between 30 and 40% THC. And for the concentrate, the THC concentrate, they're upwards of 90%. And I know you're on camera and my picture is small, but if you got really close to these pictures, you would see that even on these, the potency levels are like 88%. And it's only getting higher, right? So you have to think now, because of legalization, the sale of marijuana and THC, it's a commercialized business, right? And just like any other commercialized business, everybody who produces it and sells it wants to have the best product on the market, right? It's basic economics. If I have the best product, I have the most customers. So again, these trends of the THC levels increasing is not going to change, because as the legal market expands and we have more producers and more people growing it and selling it and extracting it, everybody wants to have the best product. So in their eyes, the higher the THC level, the better their product. So that's not going anywhere either, you know. And as kids, I know that a lot of times, you know, they might say, oh, well, my parents used to smoke weed, or my grandparents did, and they're fine. You know, and I think even sometimes as adults, if we find out that our kid is using it or experimenting with it, we might very well have that same mindset, right? Oh, I did that when I was a teenager. It was a phase. I had no problem putting it down when I grew out of that phase. But the reality is, the marijuana products that our kids are using today are absolutely nothing like the marijuana products that were out there 20 years ago, right? And we see that in the way that it's affecting our kids. You know, the number one cited reason for youth entering substance misuse treatment facilities is marijuana dependency. And I talk to adults that can't even wrap their minds around having to go to a substance treatment facility for marijuana, right? Because it's not the same caliber of substance, but it's real. It's the reality of what our kids are facing, and it's totally different than what we faced or our parents faced. Okay, number 5, this is my last quick fact on THC concentrate. Did you know that possession of a THC concentrate is an automatic felony? So, state of Texas, it's illegal in the state of Texas, right? We know that any form of marijuana is still illegal in the state of Texas for recreational or medicinal use, but Dallas has decriminalized marijuana, meaning that we're a cite and release city. So if you get caught with a small amount of traditional sort of leafy marijuana, it'll be confiscated, you'll get a ticket, and you'll have to show up in court. You won't necessarily get taken to jail if it's under a certain amount. But if you're caught with any amount of liquid THC or THC concentrate, it is a felony right off the bat, right? And it's important to keep in mind that that same rule can be applied to edibles. So if you're caught with a possession of an edible, it's considered being in possession of a controlled substance. And the way that your charge is dictated when you're in possession of a controlled substance is by how much you have in your possession. Well, if you have a food item that is laced with THC, it's impossible to extract just the THC from that food item and determine how much THC is in that. So what does that mean? That means that the entire food item is going to be weighed, and that amount is going to be what you are held accountable for having in your possession. So that whole brownie, that whole bag of gummy bears, whatever it is, it's weighed, and that is taken into consideration to determine your punishment for how much of that controlled substance you have in your possession, right? So we know that marijuana is illegal in the state of Texas, but having that liquid THC concentrate is just that much more dangerous and can have that much more severe consequences to our youth. Can you imagine a youth being caught with a liquid THC concentrate pod or edible brownies as a teenager and being hit with a felony charge? That's life altering, right? All right, guys, that was my quick facts. I know it was hot and fast, but I hope you learned something. I hope that it, like I said, it expands your viewpoints. If you want more information on this topic or any other topic, if there's a specific topic you'd like me to come back and talk about, please leave that in the comments. If you would like a presentation like this or a similar done with your organization or your school or your parent group, we can do virtual or in person, please shoot me an email or give me a call. We would love to know how Recovery Resource Council can be in service to you. Thank you again to Dallas Police Department, and I'm going to turn it back over to Drakes.
Wow. Okay. I just want to thank Becky for coming back and giving us just a little bit of her time to talk about all of the drug trends for this particular substance. We do want to reiterate, it is illegal in Texas to have that substance, okay? So smoking weed is not legal in Texas. Just want to throw that out there. Hopefully you have some ammunition at this point if you want to talk to your kids and engage them on a conversation about vaping and things like that and the harmful things that it can do to your body and your mind. So for more information, contact Becky. Contact Becky. And if you forget what she just said as far as her number and her contact information, you can contact us at 214-671-4045, and we will gladly give you that information. For now, we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon with Becky coming back for some more items that she needs to talk about to let you have the information that you need to know. Thank you. Go Stars.